If you wake up every morning with that thick brain fog pressing down on your thoughts, making even the simplest tasks feel like pushing through deep water, you know exactly what I'm describing. You stand at the kitchen counter trying to remember if you've already taken your pills, and it slips away again. You open the refrigerator and stand there. You came for something. You cannot remember what. You close it and go back to the table and sit down, and the thought still doesn't come. Errands that used to be automatic now drain you completely. You've quietly stopped driving to see friends or starting projects around the house because your mind just won't stay with you long enough to finish them. You catch your own eyes in the mirror, and the same thought hits again. This is who I am now. The version of you that used to remember every detail now can't finish a grocery list without losing your place 3 times. And the worst part is watching your grandchildren try to hide their disappointment when you forget the middle of the story you told them last week. You see the flicker across their faces. You pretend you don't. But this is not your fault, and the reason the fog keeps winning has nothing to do with your age or your willpower. While the big pharmaceutical companies and most doctors keep pushing pills that only mask the symptoms, the traditional healers in the Japanese mountains, the ones who still practice the old Kampo ways, have understood the real cause of brain fog for centuries. It is the brain's declining ability to repair and regrow its own nerve connections, and they have been handling it very differently. You have been carrying the wrong story all these years. There is a simple practice you can start before bed tonight, drawn straight from those old mountain traditions that can begin lifting decades of this fog. You might feel your mind clearing a bit by morning, and over the next few weeks that old sharpness returning in ways you have not felt in years. And the real reason this works will surprise you. The real reason is simpler and more hopeful than anyone in the white coats has ever told you. Your brain is not just aging. It still wants to repair itself. It still knows how to send out the signals that rebuild those tiny nerve connections. But over the years, something has slowed that natural repair process down to almost nothing. Think of it like an old mountain path that used to be wide and clear. Every day you walked it without thinking. You could have done it in the dark. Then the rains came, the underbrush grew thick, and the path became overgrown. The connections are still there beneath the tangle. The trail did not disappear. But the signals have trouble getting through, and so the brain sends the message, and it arrives late, or garbled, or not at all. That is the fog you feel every morning, not a broken brain, a path that needs tending. The Western medicines your doctor prescribed do not tend the path. They spray something over the top of the overgrowth to make it look, for a little while, like the way is clear, and for a few weeks you feel the difference. Then the weeds push back through, and the fog settles in again, often heavier than before, because you still have not touched the root. The doctors prescribe them because they show results on a short chart. Nobody is tracking what happens at year 2 or year 3. The people who come to me have been tracking it. They know exactly what happens. The old Kampo healers never looked for a way to suppress the overgrowth. They looked for the one thing that gently encourages the brain to start clearing and rebuilding those paths from within. For hundreds of years, they turned to a single mushroom that grows on old fallen trees in the deep forests around these mountain villages. It contains natural compounds that speak directly to the signals your own body already knows how to use for nerve repair. These compounds do not force anything. They do not override your body's own intelligence. They simply walk up to the gardener sitting on his stone wall and hand him his tools. They say, "It is time. Picture it this way. Inside your skull there is a quiet gardener who has been working since the day you were born. For decades he kept the pathways wide and open. He pruned what needed pruning. He cleared what grew over. You never had to think about it. Then one year he slowed down. The tools stayed in the shed. The paths grew wild. The fog rolled in. The gardener did not quit. He sat down on the stone wall and waited. He was waiting for the right signal to pick up his tools again. That signal is what this simple practice delivers, night after night while you sleep. And I have watched this pattern in too many people to count over too many decades to pretend it is theory. The gardener waits, but he grows tired. Every year this goes unattended, the body has a harder time finding its way back. The stone wall becomes a habit, not a threat. Just a quiet truth I have had to say to many people who waited too long to ask. I want to tell you about one person who came to me with exactly the fog you are carrying right now. Her name was Linda. She was 68, lived just outside Chicago, and had spent 30 years teaching third grade before she retired. She used to remember every child's birthday and every parent's name without writing anything down. That was the kind of mind she had. Sharp, steady, the person everyone else checked things with. By the time she found her way to my door, she could barely finish a grocery list without losing her place 3 times. She told me the worst part was not the forgetting itself. It was the faces, the way her grandchildren would look at her when she forgot the middle of a story she had just told them the week before. Not angry, just careful with her, the way children become careful with something they are not sure will hold. She had tried the pills, the expensive supplements, the memory games on her tablet. Nothing lasted more than a few weeks before the fog pressed back in thicker than before. She had stopped going to her book club, not because she couldn't get there, she still drove, but because she couldn't hold the thread of a conversation when it moved quickly, and she didn't want anyone to notice her falling behind. She sat in a chair at home instead. She told me, very quietly, that she had started to think of herself as someone who used to do things, not old, not sick, just past the part where things were possible. I gave her the same simple practice I am about to give you. She did it every night before bed, exactly as I will describe. Within 10 days she called to say the morning fog was lighter. Not gone, but lighter. She had remembered where she left her keys without searching the whole apartment. She had held a complete thought from the beginning of a sentence to the end of it without losing the thread. By the end of the 3rd week, she was driving to her book club again, holding her place in the discussion, and laughing in the car on the way home. Last month, she sent me a photograph of herself standing in her garden, smiling, because she had finally finished a flower bed she had started and abandoned 2 years earlier. The gardener inside her head had picked up his tools again. But Linda's story has one more layer. The reason the results kept getting stronger month after month instead of fading. That layer is what I am about to hand you. Now I am going to give you the exact same practice I gave Linda. You can do it tonight. Nothing unusual, nothing expensive, nothing that will interrupt your evening in any way that matters. Find a good quality lion's mane mushroom preparation that uses the fruiting body, not just the mycelium, because that is where the compounds that speak directly to your nerve growth signals are most concentrated. About 30 minutes before you plan to lie down, take 1 measured dose. If you are using the dried mushroom, gently chew a small piece about the size of a small coin. Let it sit in your mouth a moment so the warmth of your tongue begins to release the natural compounds. Chew slowly, the way you would savor a good memory. Then swallow. If you prefer the powder, stir half a teaspoon into a small cup of warm water, no hotter than you would drink your evening tea, and sip it slowly while you finish your usual bedtime routine. The key is to do this when your body is already winding down, because that is when the repair signals can travel most freely through the quiet pathways. The brain does its deepest rebuilding while you sleep. You are not just taking something. You are opening a window at the exact hour the gardener is most ready to work. Do this every single night. No skipping. The gardener does not work in fits and starts. He works when you give him the signal night after night, steady as the mountain seasons. In the first week, many people notice the fog is a little thinner when they wake. They remember where they left their glasses without hunting. They finish a sentence without that familiar pause in the middle. By the 2nd and 3rd week, the changes come in quietly, the way light does at dawn. You don't notice it happening, and then suddenly the room is bright. The people who follow this practice come back and tell me the same kinds of things. One person told me their spouse started crying in the kitchen because they had remembered their anniversary without any reminder for the first time in 6 years. Another said they caught themselves humming while folding laundry, something they hadn't done since the grandchildren stopped asking them to read bedtime stories. These are not dramatic overnight miracles. They are the first cracks of light coming back through. And once the light starts, it keeps coming. What you just learned is the fast way to quiet the fog and begin clearing the first few paths. For many of you, that is enough. Take it and go. But if you have ever wondered why this fog showed up in the first place, or why it keeps trying to creep back even in the weeks when you feel better, stay with me for just 2 more minutes. This is what I tell the people who sit across from me when they want the change to hold for years, not just weeks. Over the years, I have noticed a pattern. The lion's mane begins the repair. But what I observe again and again is that the deepest root lies one step further back, in the quiet, constant conversation between the gut and the brain. These two have been talking to each other since before you drew your first breath. The gut sends signals upward all day, all night. When those signals are steady and strong, the nerve repair pathways stay open and active. When the gut is out of balance, those signals go muddy. The gardener up in the brain starts receiving garbled instructions. The tools go back in the shed. The fog creeps in from the edges. What I have noticed over many decades of watching this in real people is that the fog you feel in your head is the surface. Underneath it is a gradual weakening of the gut-brain signals. And underneath that is the daily life of the gut itself. What you feed it, what you deprive it of, what it has slowly run short of over the years. That is where the imbalance is fed or calmed every single day. The lion's mane quiets the symptom and begins the repair work. But when you also give the gut the three things it has always needed, good living bacteria, the fiber those bacteria love to eat, and the healing compounds they produce once they are properly fed, the conversation between gut and brain steadies. The instructions coming up to the gardener become clear again. And that is when the results stop fading after 3 weeks and start building into something that lasts. In the old mountain villages, they have always understood this connection. For generations, they have used a simple fermented drink that delivers all three of those things in one quiet daily habit. It is what I give the people who come to me wanting the longest lasting results alongside the lion's mane practice. Those are the ones who write to me a year later still feeling the difference. I make my own kombucha at home because I have the time and the knowledge. But for everyone watching online who can't brew their own, I give BoochBod Kombucha Gummies. The link is in the description. Or you can search BoochBod Kombucha Gummies on Amazon. Linda is back to hosting her book club every month. She stands in her kitchen now, laughing with her grandchildren, remembering every detail of the stories she tells them. The woman who once stood at the mirror and thought this fog was simply her new normal. The same road is open to you. It is never too late. The body at 65, at 75, at 80 still knows how to do this work. It has been waiting for the right signals, the right support, the right gentle nudge each night before bed. You can give it those things starting tonight. Subscribe if you want more of these quiet, practical ways to feel like yourself again, the ones that have been working in the mountains long before anyone thought to put them in a pill. Share this with someone you know who wakes up in that same fog. And if anything I said today reached you, leave a comment below. I read every single one. Until next time,